Big news also today out of the Manly Seagulls with Josh Schuster free to go. We only spoke about it last night. We're talking about DCE and how are they going to keep him. And we mentioned Schuster and how much he takes up on the cap. And apparently today he's been told to go.
Yeah, meeting between Josh Schuster, his agent, and Anthony Seibold this morning. And it's been bubbling away for the last couple of weeks. They were intimating that, they needed to see more out of Josh Schuster in reserve grade. And he's gone back there and he's struggled. You look at some of the performance there in reserve grade, there's a lack of effort, there's a lack of desire in him. So they've told him today, you're free to leave immediately if you can find a club. Otherwise, you see out this year and then you can free to go at the end of next year. Keeping in mind, last year he re-signed for 3 years. He has not even started that contract yet. So that contract hasn't started yet. He's still in his old deal at the moment. So he won't see a day in that new contract, which is remarkable. You look at that Manly roster and they've done an outstanding job to piece together that roster, except for this deal.
But that's still going to cripple Manly because whoever takes Schuster will go nowhere near the 800 that the new deal asked for, which he begins next season. So Manly going to have to carry a large load of that.
Kenty, they're confident that there's some parameters in play that they may not have to pay out a cent of that contract.
What they'll do is they'll look for the valuation from the NRL. And they'll say, look, he's clearly not worth...
What do you mean parameters?
Well, so in Josh's contract, there's a weight clause. And before Christmas, he met all his targets. He adhered to them. He was looking really good. He was training well. And they thought, OK, the penny's finally dropped here. Post-Christmas, he's had a sickness, he's had a calf injury, he's had a broken hand. And now it's a bit murky whether or not, because of those injuries, does that mitigate where those clauses are at. So I think Manly...
Is it normal to have those clauses in a contract?
I haven't heard of weight
But
clauses.
it just shows, right, like the concerns they had around him from the get-go.
They're old-fashioned, those clauses.
And to think that they...
Jeff Bugden had one when Terry Lee beat it in Parramatta in 86.
To think they sign him on that amount of money, though, knowing this, because, no disrespect to the poor kid, but there's a lot of we hear a lot about his performances, his training, his attitude, and it's just been.
It was a bad deal. It was a bad deal for the kid, right? Because it puts the exposure, the impetus, and the pressure on him that he's only 22. He wasn't ready to handle it, and it was a bad deal from the club because
the Tigers wanted to pay over $1 million. Remember?
Yeah.
Do you remember that? I don't forget that because I couldn't believe it.
Some of the Tigers did.
I know why.
Yeah.
I mentioned it last year.
Yeah.
But that sort of put Manly in a corner a little bit, and I think they panicked.
They panicked. There's no doubt they panicked. And what else it does? It creates a whispering campaign amongst the teammates who go, he's on 800. He's not putting in.
Let him make the tackle.
But
which he isn't making.
It's all performance-based, this decision. It's all performance-based. To date this year, as you touched on, he hasn't been... Well, we haven't seen him in the NRL.
He can't be picked in the NRL.
But surely there's also got to be some heat applied. The people who made the decision at Manly to sign him to that contract, that's now hurting the rest of the roster. Well, it's a gun roster. They're now... The performance that we've seen from the Seagulls to date, you would quite confidently say that they are a damn good chance of making the top 8. And if everybody's fit, they're in a window. Like they may well be able to go on a run. But when you're carrying 800,000 on a player who's not even going to feature in the NRL, well, that's bad management.
And it's also raised the price of Homoli Okolawatu up and Paseka and these guys who have seen what Schuster has got. And they go, well, what's my value to this team?
It's a bit of a lesson too to agents and clubs and players that getting the big dollar isn't always the best thing for the actual player. The expectation, the pressure that comes with it.
Josh Reynolds was a prime example of that. Josh Reynolds went to Canterbury at the time and said, this is what West Tigers are offering me. And Ray Dibb was the chairman, or CEO, chairman I think he was, and he just said, Josh, we can't even get close to that, take it. And then once he got to West Tigers, everyone at West Tigers said, and with due respect to Josh, but everyone was like, we're paying this kid over 900,000, and the weight on the salary cap crippled their salary cap, so the only way they could see it out of it, once Ivan Cleary left, who signed him, and once he left and went to another club, and a new coach came in, he said, one of the first things we've got to do is get rid of this, because we just can't move around within our cap with this much sitting in one player. And that Schuster's the same. Sometimes a manager can do too good a deal for the player that it actually comes back to bite them.
Well, it can ruin them. I mean, the longevity of someone like Josh, who could have just taken his time, not have too much pressure on him, didn't take up too much of the cap, because he's got the talent. He's definitely got the talent to play first grade every week, to play Origin, to do all. He's got that talent in him. But when you get that pressure of the high dollars, the expectation, and all of a sudden everyone's got their eyes on you, and you're copping criticism
And if
and
you're
all
not
that.
the right personality
That's
for
right.
it, you can shy away from that,
That's right.
which then manifests itself in the problems like him putting on the weight, not training as hard as you should be doing, because psychologically there's a part inside him that's trying not to get to where everyone thinks he's going to be, because that just brings the pressure that comes with it.
Nick, have you got any mail about where could he possibly land? What other clubs
it's
might?
early days, right, with that hoops, because it only happened this morning, and he's not going to command anywhere near 800. I think sides will take a punt on him because of what Brace said. He's got the talent. He's got all the skill. Maybe in a stronger, a different environment, he might
but
thrive.
I don't think he's worth the cent over 300.
Well, it's going to be a reality check for him.
That's
It's gonna be a
500
reality
a
check for him.
season
But
less.
the one that you look at and you go, well, maybe they could make it work is with Des at the Titans. With how desperate they are
I would
to
have thought
sign
more.
some players.
They can't be looking for a player like
I would
that.
have thought more of a strong system, like Craig Bellamy and the Melbourne Storm.
That would be perfect
where he
for him.
goes
That would be
down, rips
absolutely
in,
perfect
the
for
I
him.
don't quit school,
Yeah.
has to do all the pre-season camps. They get him cherry ripe fitness.
Go to Penrith, go to one of those.
If you're managing Schuster and you really care about his long-term future and not your 6% over the next few years, you do put him in that strong system where you put really good players around him, where they've got a high work ethic, and you say, listen, mate, we're going to take a haircut now. We're going to play for a little bit less than what we'll get in the Manly and what this club over here is offering us, or this club here is offering us. But what we're going to do, we're going to have 3-4 hard years here. Going to get your footy going right, and hopefully, mate, by the time you get to the end of it, then what you are, you're back up in that same price range again, but you're now justifying it and you're earning it as you should be earning it. And then, because he's still a young man, he's got another 5, 6, 7 years of earning that kind of money. But if the fruit gets too tempting to them right now and they go to the best offer that's available out there, he could be playing for Salford in about 3 years.
Bryce Cartwright,
That's the future, what the future looks like for him.
Bryce Cartwright's a recent example. He was on the big money at Penrith, and Gold Coast signed him for even more, and it didn't work out. And ultimately, he had to be prepared to sacrifice a hell of a lot, do all the hard work, go back to Parramatta, and he's rebuilt his career.
It happens a lot if you're not the right personality to handle the pressure and the money and the expectation. It does happen time and time again in our game.